Good evening. Welcome to the Board of Zoning Appeals meetings for Concord Township. Today tonight? The date today? For May 10th of 2023. My name is Francis Sweeney. To my far left is Ashley Garkar, Brandon Dines, and to my right is Davey Rowan. To my far right over here is Heather Freeman. She's a township inspector. And to my far left over here is Keith Peterson, Township Legal Counsel. God bless you. Under advice of our legal counsel, we ask that anyone speaking tonight be sworn in. If you plan on speaking, please stand and raise your right hand. Excuse me. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help me God.
Yes.
Thank you. Please be seated. When presenting your case or commenting, please come to the microphone and state your name and address and confirm that you have been sworn in. Heather, were the legal notices published in a timely manner?
Yes, they were.
Thank you. Tonight, we have 3 variances, and we will start with the first one, and that is variance / appeal application number 2023-124. Kimberly Perry and James Perry are requesting the following for the property located at 11190 Spear Road. Current parcel number 08-A-A-00-00-049-0. A variance from section 1503A6, table 1503-1 to allow for more than one accessory building on a lot less than 2 acres. B, administrative appeal from the zoning inspector's decision and violation letter from the section 1101A stating that a zoning permit is required for accessory buildings. This is for the chicken coop. This would be under section 6.01. And C, administrative appeal from the zoning inspector's decision and excuse me, and violation letter from section 11.01A, zoning permit required at 15.03A6, table 15.03-1, stating that the number of accessory buildings in an R1 district on lots less than 2 acres shall not exceed 1. And this is for the greenhouse, section 6.01. Who's ever presenting for that, please approach. Good evening.
Jim Perry, 11190 Spear Road.
Okay, thank you very much. Go ahead.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. Since we only have 4 members
Yeah,
tonight, would you please
yeah.
confirm
Since
your
tonight we
wish?
only have 4 members, and this is for all the applicants, you can either forego tonight's
continue.
meeting,
I'll continue.
or you'll continue with the 4 members?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thanks. I think you said that. Were you sworn in?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you have questions for me, or, I mean,
No. Do you have a presentation to make?
no.
Okay. All right.
I think it speaks for itself a little bit, what we presented.
All right. Sounds good. Are there any questions?
Well, I would just suggest
From the
if
board.
you could maybe give us a little bit of background, just kind of. I know it's all in here, but I
Oh,
think
okay.
for the record,
Yeah, we
kind of give us the
we
backstory,
applied
what you're looking
to
for.
build a new detached garage, and we can't do that until we clear up some violations and interest in, the other buildings we have on the property. We've since decided to probably do a attached garage, that we won't have as many accessory buildings. And I didn't know I needed a permit to build my shed, so that's why I didn't get a permit to begin with. If we get the variance for the shed in the backyard, we will apply for the building permit for that, pay the fee.
All right, so maybe I can help kind of get through this. So my understanding, 1952, just a little background history, the house is there. And the shed, the 10 by 12 shed is also there on the property, correct?
And the garage,
And the garage, okay.
right, detached garage. Yeah.
And that, if I understand correctly, the detached garage would have been in 1962.
Could be, we didn't own it then, yeah.
I figured.
Yeah.
Okay, and there's an indication here that perhaps that was even in 1952, so regardless. So the shed, the detached garage, and the home all certainly have existed for, let's say, 50, 60 years, more than that, right?
Correct, right.
Maybe 70 years. My math is really bad. I went to Riverside. So, all right. Then in March 2000, your wife purchased the property.
Right,
All those structures were still there.
right.
Okay. And then since that time, you've added what other structures?
The chicken coop, the hoop house, and then an additional shed, but I also, since we started this process, have gotten rid of the old shed. So there's still the 2 accessory buildings, the coop, and then the hoop house.
Was it the 10 by 12 shed that was removed?
Yes,
Okay. And so then it's the 12 by 16 shed and the garage that are the 2 accessory buildings current,
yes.
plus then we have the greenhouse. And it was a hoop.
Just the hoop house is the greenhouse. It's just
okay, yeah.
6 hoops with plastic over it.
Gotcha.
And I understand your wife isn't here, but it looks like she put together a pretty
Yeah,
concise letter.
yeah, I did my
And
homework.
we've read that.
Yeah, yeah.
Again, I'm trying to help here. I don't mean to overstep any bounds, but as a board here, this information we understand has been presented in print, but we kind of need you to take us through some of that and explain us what the circumstances are and why you're requesting this, so we have a better understanding of it. So if you could maybe go through that.
Yeah, we
have
use
to do that for the record as well, as you probably.
Sure, we use the chicken coop and the hoop house for agricultural use. And originally I wanted to build a bigger garage to have more storage space. We don't have a basement and we have an attic. We have since abated some asbestos in the attic, so I have to re-insulate, but it's not really even big enough for storage. So we're kind of cramped on storage, which is why we need the extra space, for the additional shed in the back. And the way the property sits, it's mostly front yard, and then the way the house sits, kind of an angle towards the freeway, there's not much room in the back to, get stuff around the back of the house where it might normally be, where you wouldn't see it from the street, I guess, And we would like to continue with the hoop house, but, I can take that down in, a matter of a few hours probably, since it's just the metal frame.
So again, I'm seeming the only one talking here. The plan is to build an attached garage.
Right.
When is that expected to start, or?
This summer, yeah,
Okay.
we'd like to get it done
Okay.
before the end of the summer.
So you'll be applying for a permit
Yes,
to add that?
yes.
And then, just so I understand, is it your position that you are going to remove the chicken coop? Or the greenhouse? You were just talking about one of those.
Well, we would like to keep it under the Ohio statute, but, I'm not an attorney, so I don't know that if that completely applies.
I just didn't know if I understood what you said. I'm sorry. I heard you
Okay.
say you could take it apart in a couple hours, and I may have missed something.
Well, because I called the county before and asked them if there was a problem with having it, and they said, no, it's not a building. So we just put it up and, that kind of thing. And that's why originally I didn't think to talk to Concord, because I didn't know there was a real difference then, when we were doing this.
Your house abuts I-90, obviously, and then to the north, it's the Metro Parks.
Directly across from our driveway is a ranger station, and then, further down the street, yeah, so
Then you have a neighbor on either side.
yes.
Have you discussed with them any of your plans?
Yes, they're fine with the plans.
Are they good with that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other questions?
So it sounds, all right, just to kind of recap. So we've got a detached garage currently that's going to become a new attached garage at some point. So
Right.
that's one accessory building out of
Right.
the equation. The 10 by 12 shed is gone. So then we've got 3 accessory buildings right now left. We've got the 12 by 16, the chicken coop, and the greenhouse, the hoop structure. Potentially, then we're left with 2, which if you take down the greenhouse, which would be the coop, chicken coop, and the shed. Does that sound right? to
If
everybody?
you're considering the coop and the greenhouse, the hoop house to be a building.
Being a building.
Yeah.
And I guess,
That's our contention that they're not buildings, or the chicken coop is a building, a small building that you're allowed to have for agricultural use.
I do have a question. You talked about potentially changing your guys' minds of not doing an additional detached garage,
Right.
doing an attached garage. If you guys do an attached garage, are you getting rid of your detached garage?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
it's
that
in
would
a
still
state
be-
where we need to get rid of it. Yeah.
Okay, so either way, this garage currently as is will be getting rid of, whether it's attached or an additional detached to replace it. This
Right.
one will be gone.
Yes. Yes.
And the hope is to submit plans and seek approval for the attached garage
Of course. Yeah.
pretty soon.
Yes. Yeah. Right away. Yeah.
Excuse me.
Have you consulted with a contractor about that? Are you doing it yourself, or what are your thoughts?
I have a friend that's a contractor. He's going to do the foundation for me and the flat work for the concrete, and then I've been staving off another contractor, Amish crew, to do the framing for me. But I'll finish it, myself.
And then just out of curiosity, where will that attached garage attach?
It would attach on the north east side, where the other one is, but of course closer to the house there.
Okay.
So it'll be a big, long house.
Looks like you have to take down some trees for that.
Yeah, there's a couple of pine trees up against the house. Yep. And it'll probably be if the house is like this, it'll probably be at a little angle, kind of to conform to the property a little better.
And since you're planning, any issues that you foresee with the setback from the side yard or anything as far as size of the garage?
No, there's plenty of room on the side. It's not going to be, 28 by 32, a little over a 2-car garage, 3-car garage, but no bigger than that. And a little bit of loft space above it for storage,
I have a question about the greenhouse.
Sure.
So you said you could take it down in a couple hours. What? I'm trying to understand, what would prevent you, or I guess, is there any reason to not be able to take that down seasonally and put it up seasonally?
Not really. It's a little bit of a chore. I mean, it's easier to take it down.
Right.
then put it up. It takes a few people to stretch the plastic, and then, you know, I could probably only reuse the plastic like twice, you know, so it's a little bit of a, you know, cost. If I do take it down, if I wanted to put it up again, honestly, we would probably apply for a permit for a actual framed greenhouse that we could attach to our house, you know, on the backside or something. Just because it's a little more space than we need, but the way it is, because it's curved, you can only walk down the middle, so it kind of has a bigger footprint than what you get use out of, where a regular framed one or metal greenhouse, you know, so.
I'm trying to, maybe this is a question for the board and legal. So I'm trying to understand what makes, you know, a permanent structure versus temporary. I think that's one of my questions with the greenhouse. Like, can it be considered a temporary structure? You know, I think we're trying to understand, is this a structure? You're saying it's not considered a structure. Zoning is saying it is a structure. I'm trying to understand, like, how do we define that clearly, or what is there a delineation here that we can work for or against with? I don't know if you guys have any thoughts, or I don't know if I'm asking the right question.
Well, I think we define what it is.
Well, I think there are some definitions. Heather could help us, but I think one of the questions along those lines is there a concrete pad under there? Is there a permanent floor?
No. And the hoops are held up with stakes. They're metal stakes you drive in, and then you put the hoop on them.
Gotcha.
You know. And I think the way we read it is a structure is 3 walls and a roof. You know, so it has no walls to speak of, and it has no roof to speak of. I mean, I know it's,
Right.
it's,
Mr. Chairman, if I can mention, kind of Mr. Rowan's question about the definition.
Yeah.
And you have the zoning resolution in front of you. Our zoning resolution does define greenhouse, defines it as a building or structure constructed chiefly of glass, glass-like or translucent material, cloth or lath that is devoted to the protection of cultivation of flowers or other tender plants.
Okay.
So that's straight from our adopted zoning regulations.
which, and that's under structures, is that?
That is the definition of the greenhouse,
In our
Okay.
zoning.
Okay.
502A91.
Anybody have any other questions?
Well, I guess, Mr. Perry, if you can kind of take us through a little bit of, and I know the letter from your wife certainly kind of discusses it, and it gets into some of the statutory issues and some other things, but can you give us a little bit of background on what potential hardship, if any, that you and your wife foresee with this, or removing it, or some of the other issues that you're facing?
Well, I mean, just as we get older, the storage portion is what we're worried about to begin with having the garage that was bigger with a loft to then store stuff in the loft instead of in our attic. I guess as hardships, we just, you know, we like to have some chickens, and we like to grow plants. You know, we grow hanging baskets every year, and I do real estate, so I give them away to my customers and friends and family. We also do a big garden every year that we start our tomato plants from real small, and, you know, we already got some going now. And, you know, it's just, something we like to do.
You good?
Okay.
Okay. Davey?
I don't have any other questions at this time.
Okay. All right, thank you. Is there anyone else here tonight that's speaking either for or against any of these variances? If not, I will close the public portion of the meeting. And I'll entertain a motion to approve. And I've been told we need to do this one variance at a time. So I guess I will entertain a motion to approve variance A that relates to the accessory building. I guess we should start with that.
Second?
All right.
Who moved?
Oh, I don't,
Did you move?
Or so moved then.
I'll second.
There we go.
who moved?
Threw me off.
All right, discussion.
So, I guess my question on the variance for A. So, if we approve, are we approving 1, 2, 3 accessory buildings since we've got the greenhouse, the chicken coop, and the shed? And will doing that render the other 2 not necessary to vote on?
If we don't grant it.
If we do grant it, though,
Yeah, if we do grant it, then
I guess that's
we would
I'm
go
trying
to,
yeah.
we'd go on a rule on the
And so,
permits.
I guess that's where my question is on this variance. Is it for all of the buildings that are accessory buildings? Because it just says allow for more than one. So does that mean unlimited? Do we need to define
I believe
that?
that's the point, Heather.
Well, the applicant's statement of variance appeal states that they're requesting a variance for the 12 by 16 shed. If you look at page
Okay.
1.
So so that variance is just for the shed.
So is that the way I read
maybe-
it?
yeah.
I could be wrong. Was the 10 by 12 shed numbers? The small shed you guys took down, and the garage was already kind of grandfathered in, and so you guys are requesting a variance for the fact that you tore down the shed that was grandfathered in, and you're asking for a variance for the shed that you quote unquote replaced the grandfathered in shed.
Right. And it was my thought that I didn't understand that if you tore one of them down, you weren't grandfathered anymore, right? But I guess I was a little confused with that I didn't understand to begin with, that could happen, that, you know.
So the first variance is approving that you guys can keep your 12 by 16 shed.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or not first variance, the item A on our agenda is to keep the 12 by 16 and to the extent replace that by the missing shed now.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not exactly clear. The way I interpreted their application was that they wanted, because they had the original 10 by 12 and the detached garage. Those were at one point non-conforming, but then they added the other additional buildings on, as was already mentioned during this hearing. Then they requested the variance so they could keep the larger shed that they had put in the back. But instead of asking to keep the non-conforming one in addition to the larger 12 by 16 and the detached garage, they tore down voluntarily the 10 by 12 and then subsequently filed the variance application to ask to keep the 12 by 16. And at the same time, and it wasn't really discussed much here, but on their application B and C, they're asking for an administrative appeal from the zoning inspector's decision regarding whether or not we can even regulate the agricultural use on their property. And as we are trying to get the applicant to indicate, but the letter that was submitted, Ms. Perry has a different opinion regarding whether or not their property is subject to the agricultural use regulations that we currently have in section 601 of the zoning resolutions, where we do have regulations in place that would involve lots ranging between 1 and 5 acres.
Okay.
And thank you, that
Yeah.
kind of clears it up for me, because I was trying to make sure that we understood that this first one
It's
is
just
just for the 10 by 12.
Right.
the 12 by 16.
12 by
The
16,
bigger
sorry,
shed.
yes. The replacement of the 10 by 12 by
The bigger shed replacing
Exactly.
the grandfathered in shed. Yes.
Okay, so for discussion, we're only talking about that shed.
It
Is that-
wasn't, Heather, might be a question. I was reading that correctly, that the 10 by 12 shed was grandfathered in.
It was, yes.
Okay.
But it is no longer present on the property.
Correct.
Yes.
Here's my thoughts, since we're out of public meeting and discussing this. The applicant has indicated he has future plans, and those future plans may in essence render some of this moot, and some of this maybe not even for our consideration. And I don't know that it's necessarily, it behooves us to do so, but I would almost, and this has been tabled many times for various reasons, and none of us want to do that to a particular applicant. I'm almost of the mindset presently to table this until such further information becomes available to us, at which time we might render some of these things moot or be able to make a different or more competent decision. My fear right now is we're making a decision, and with all due respect to Mr. Perry, I think it might be helpful to also have a little more information from him as he's indicated what he's going to get. I'm stuttering here is what I'm trying to say, but I don't know that, I think it would be better for our purposes today to stay this, preserve the status quo as it is until such time as we have a little more information from Mr. Perry. And otherwise, I guess I'm a little bit troubled that we're going to make a decision here tonight without everything that we need. And that decision may or may not be appropriate. So, just my 2 cents. I'm not trying to punt the ball and push it on down the line. It just seems to me there's a lot of other things here. And in fact, if he comes back, otherwise I think any decision we make is going to be contingent upon perhaps a number of factors. And we're going to put ourselves in a position where we're asking certain things from the township and from him, adding perhaps more enforcement or more things that we would, in my estimation anyways, I'm thinking about this, that we would perhaps grant some things or not grant them, but then allow for him to do certain things and have it revisited by an inspector otherwise. So I'm open to what anybody else thinks about this.
And now I have questions. I think the first section of the variance, I think that's pretty self-explanatory, and I think we can vote on that if we can split these up, but I don't know that we need to split these up. If Heather, maybe you can help me with the second and third appeals from the violation letter claiming that there's no permit for the greenhouse and the chicken coop, right?
Correct.
All right, so you sent him a letter and said, hey, you need a permit for the chicken house and the chicken coop and the greenhouse,
Correct.
right? Okay,
Yes.
so can he come into you and say, hey, can I get a permit for the chicken coop and the greenhouse?
Those permits would need to be denied because he would be exceeding the maximum number of allowed accessory
All right,
buildings.
have
on
those
the
been
lot.
denied?
No, they did not subsequently file for those permits. They opted to file the appeal.
All right,
rather.
these two are clearly premature, I think. Does that make sense to you?
They are basically
Brandon?
saying that I'm interpreting our zoning resolution incorrectly, and they're asking you to decide who is correct, the zoning inspector or them.
Oh, so
So they
we're
are
here
two-
tonight saying, and when we make a decision on those, the second and third
Yes.
appeal,
That'll trigger.
we're saying, yeah, you need a permit, or no, you don't need a permit.
So A is approving for the shed and the garage. B and
Right.
C are saying there are, if we approve it, we are saying
You don't
Heather is
need a permit.
incorrect for the way she's
Right.
interpreting our zoning. They don't need a permit
Right.
because according to what they're claiming with the Ohio Revised Code, it's agriculture use, and as a township, we cannot
Well,
require.
I don't even know if we can get that far.
So that's what they're saying. So they're asking for a variance for one extra building. And then B and C are not extra buildings because they're claiming that it's
Right.
agricultural and we can't.
Right, we're not even there yet.
Well, we're making a decision on whether Heather is correct in her interpretation, and then and correct me if I'm wrong, that would trigger other things, either
Right.
they would need to get a
If we
permit,
agreed with
or
Heather.
If we agree with Heather, and if we
Or
don't
the zoning
agree with Heather,
department.
then I guess they
And-
would be able to have.
So if we say that, in our view, based upon what's in front of us, there are no permit is needed for either of these structures, then it doesn't trigger any of the requirements, right?
I don't know if that's a question for legal.
Right, well, Mr. Chairman, if you agree
We're on the
with,
verge of.
if you vote in favor of the applicant with items B and C, that they are correct and I'm incorrect,
Right,
then nothing else would be needed from them, from our department.
For B and C, but still
Correct.
something would be needed for A.
Yeah, we're just talking B and C
Right.
right now, yeah.
So we're just talking the chicken coop and the
Right.
greenhouse.
right.
But the shed still needs to be dealt with, which
Right.
I
We can,
think was suggested of waiting for the garage, because if the garage is attached, then there's really no need for a variance for an extra shed.
is that
So
why
the-
you
So
suggested
the A was the
he wait?
tabling because the garage would be attached, and then there is
I
nothing.
think there's a lot of issues here. Dave, are you here on this particular matter? I know there's correspondence in this from you. If we open the public meeting back up so we could ask questions.
Yep,
David Rodacci, Lake County Planning Community Development Director. I did write a memo on the status of these lots. If you have any questions about their status, if they're a subdivision or not a subdivision, if you have the right to enforce, to regulate agriculture on these lots, I'm here to answer those questions. Okay, I wrote a memo on January 10th, 2023. Area of 15 or more lots created under ORC 711-131. Concord Township Planning and Zoning Director requested Lake County Planning Commission review and determine the number of lots created under ORC 711-131 on pages 18A and 14 of the Concord Township Tax Map Book. This includes parcel number 8A, 18A, 00-049-0. ORC 519.21 allows the township to regulate agriculture in areas that have 15 or more contiguous lots created under ORC 711-131, and we have requested to determine we have determined that the area meets that standard. ORC states that the lots need to be contiguous, but may be on the opposite side of the right-of-way. ORC 711-131 states that each lot can be divided into no more than 5 lots. Lake County Planning Commission has taken the position when you divide a lot, both the lot and the split, and the remainder are created under ORC 711-131. So a lot split, so there are 2 types of subdivisions in Ohio. The first one is a major subdivision, which is done by a plat, which is a large sheet of paper that gets recorded in the recorder's office. Usually those are roads and the lots. So the Quail Hollow subdivisions, all your major subdivisions will dedicate a road plus new sublots. And then the owner can transfer the lot by short form, say sublot 1 of Quail Hollow number 1 can be transferred on the deed, and it gives the volume and page of that plat. The other option of dividing lots is called lot split, and it's done by legal description. So a surveyor will describe each lot and say how many acres, how much frontage it is, and where it's located in the world. They'll start at a known point at an intersection. Say you go down 1,000 feet to a road, and you divide the lot and say it's 100 feet wide by 250 feet deep, and it's 25,000 square feet, or just over in half an acre. So each one of those lots are still a subdivision per the ORC, and the 51921 says that in areas that have 15 or more of those lots, you can regulate agriculture. And I believe that Ms. Freeman is determined that this area, asked me to determine if this area had 15 or more lots divided by ORC 711-131, and we determined yes, that these lots have been lot split, including the lot in question. It is actually a remainder of a lot split.
Thank you.
Questions?
Heather, so and I'm getting ahead of the one because we only had the one. We're only addressing the A, but that'll be easy enough to deal with. So the question before us on B and C is, does the applicant need a permit for these two structures? And in our decision, are we supposed to first decide if the township has the right to direct agriculture on these lots? Because if we say yes, the township's going to want to know, well, why are you saying yes? You know, are you saying it's not agriculture? So I mean, so our decision is going to be saying a lot, and I just want to know, what is it exactly we're asked to do in B and C as a board?
Okay. So the application for B, the applicant is appealing our decision that what we have told them is that they need a zoning permit for the chicken coop because it is an agricultural use that we regulate under section 601. They disagree with that opinion, and for whatever reason stated in their letter that they provided to you, that is their argument as to why they disagree.
Right. So within your letter saying it's a violation, hey, we can regulate that, are you telling him you can't have a chicken coop?
I'm saying that he's
Is that
over
what
he's over the maximum number of accessory buildings that
Okay.
he can have.
Okay, so that's what you're telling him.
He
It
yes,
just so happens to be that a chicken coop is one of those.
one of those buildings.
All right,
So
See,
basically,
that
basically
creates
he's saying,
layers of,
basically what he's saying in his application is that he was grandfathered in for 2 extra buildings. He made a new building, didn't realize it didn't transfer for the grandfathering in, took down one of them, which was the grandfathered in, unknowingly that it didn't transfer grandfathered in. And he's saying that, asking for that to be re-grandfathered in, and he is saying, or him and his wife are saying, that the chicken coop and the greenhouse are not allowed to be buildings or structures that would be above the multiple structures on the acreage.
right, right.
But then we have the county saying if it's more than 15, that the revised code that was stated in the letter
Allows us to regulate
allows us to regulate it.
buildings,
Right.
including agriculture.
So it's seeming like they've looked up some of their stuff with the revised code. Heather's interpreted as well as gone to Lake County and asked, has our legal department said anything about which direction this is?
I would simply reiterate again my personal opinion on this right now. I'm not trying to hijack anything. In full disclosure, I didn't expect to be here, and I came here, and I'm just personally not fully prepared to analyze this as we're going through this right now. I don't feel that that I'm at least in quite the position to do so. And that's why I suggested that I think it appropriate the board perhaps table this to get a little more information, do a little more investigation, as I think we're entitled to and warranted to do, to understand this a little bit better before hastily making a decision, which is my fear is that that's what we're going to do.
Can we ask legal for our Concord legal for their opinion on which way it is? Since it seems like both sides are stating different chunks of the revised code. If we're gonna table it, is that something we can ask for?
I would defer to legal counsel who's here tonight. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to give my opinion. I do agree with our zoning department in that the way the ORC is structured allows for some room for regulation of agriculture, accessory structures for agricultural purposes. As the representative from the county said, the lots that were split in this manner exceed the amount required by the revised code to allow the township to regulate it. So we think the regulations comply with the revised code, and that under the township regulations that they would be considered accessory structures. Did that answer your question?
It answered my question. I don't know if it caused for extra questions to everyone else though.
Can't we just, I'm prepared to go forward.
I don't know about A, but I feel like B and C, his legal counsel's questions or answers were B and C is, the way I interpreted what legal counsel is saying is that Heather was correct and B and C would be denied, which then means we go back to a lot of extra factors of whether or not we do A or not and potentially table A. So there's a lot of factors in A on the agenda.
Well,
moving forward as well.
hold on a second. Are you prepared to go forward?
I am.
To vote? Brandon, you prepared to go forward and vote?
Well, I've expressed my opinion. I'll do whatever the board pleases.
Okay.
I'm prepared to go forward after if we have more discussion on just A. Because I feel like we've discussed everything in general, but we need to talk about the variance first, and then talk about and then vote on that, and then one at a time.
If I may interject a little bit, the way the variance is worded says variance from section 1503A6, table 15.03-1 to allow for more than one accessory building on a lot less than 2 acres. It doesn't mention a specific accessory structure. So it would be my advice that it might be better to handle B and C first, so that you are then determining the appeal, which would sort of give light on whether you think those are accessory structures for the purpose of regulating them as accessory structures for agricultural purposes, or if you decided otherwise, then they would not be. But either way, that would, I think, give you more guidance on whether section A would just be approving a variance for just the 12x16 shed, or potentially the 12x16 shed, and or the chicken coop, and or the greenhouse. So that might be a better way to go about it, just because that variance does say for more than one accessory building. It doesn't say for 2, it doesn't say for 1 for the 12x16 shed. So that would be my advice.
I think that's a good way to do it.
So we have a motion that was seconded. So I guess in the process, where are we right now? Do we need to?
Well,
I think we need to get rid
that
of
can remain where it is, but I can also then move for a motion accepting or denying the administrative appeal B and C. Right?
If you want to do them together, you could do them individually if you want to talk about them
Yeah,
individually.
I mean, I think they both encompass the same issue.
Do we need to close the motion for agenda 1A?
I think we leave that open for now.
As long as you say, we're temporarily
Yeah.
tabling it.
Yeah, we'll leave that open. Are you okay with that?
I'm not trying to be difficult. I've expressed my opinion. I'm not personally comfortable making a decision tonight,
All right,
so
what-
I may very well abstain. But
What
I'm
additional
here to-
information do you need?
I've got quite a
'Cause I
bit
might
that I
agree with
really
you.
want to look at. I mean, to be quite honest, as I mentioned, there's parts of the revised code that I would want to read in full and understand as it pertains to agricultural uses. There's parts of what the applicant stated as future plans that I'd like to know a little bit more about, whether that's relevant now or not. My thought is we're making a decision based upon, we've been provided some information tonight, which is outside of what we have in our packet, and outside of what we first were considering. To the extent that that's viable or not, it creates other issues on the property. But by and large, again, my biggest concern for me personally is and I'm just trying to be candid, I'm not prepared, given the circumstances here and given some of these issues, to really dive into it. So that's me.
And I guess for me, if we're going to table, I think I think we should we ask, make sure the applicant is comfortable with that? Or is that something we table and,
Yeah, I think legal counsel can weigh in, but I think we have the ability as a board, if that's our decision, to table it by motion or otherwise, and then have it reheard. So, I don't think the applicant necessarily can force us to make a decision.
Right,
That's
no, I agree.
where we are. But I'll let Mr. Peterson weigh in on that.
No, I agree. The decision to table is something that would be up to the board.
okay.
And I'm not trying to hold everybody hostage here. I'm just telling you personally, there's a lot here that I'd like to know more about before I proceed to a decision that I fear might be incorrect or inaccurate.
I don't know that we can, what do you want to say?
I'm just wondering, I understand if because of the 2 and 3 are more difficult than 1. And the 12 by 16 is the most important thing to me. So I don't want to have to move it, and we need it.
If we table it, we're not asking him, if we're tabling it though, we're not asking him to tear it down or move it right away. Tabling means a decision would
Right.
be coming in a couple months, right?
Tabled it a few times.
Okay. So tabling is just kind of letting his property stay
Because
as is for now.
I have a tendency,
Okay.
I am starting to agree with Brandon. These intersecting issues are
It's complex.
more confusing the further we get into them, and I want to make sure, like Brandon, that I get my head around this before I make a decision. I think I know how I want it to go, but I want to be fair to you and to the township. So I would agree with.
I'll just say one more thing. I think that decision on these particular issues may potentially require some conditions that we're going to put in place. And again, we could sit here all night long and that would be fine, but I could see that taking quite a bit of time without the proper introspection, without the proper basis behind them, and then we're putting the township and the applicant in a bad spot one way or the other. And I fear that by doing that tonight, we're going down the wrong path. So again, just
All
my
right.
2 cents.
Can I just add, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
Would it be helpful to the board if the applicant were to come back with something next month showing this proposed addition to the home, the garage addition, to make sure that that addition is not going to require variances from side yard, rear yard? Because that's nothing that
Yep.
our office has seen, and nothing that he has brought this evening. And I think that would help. I think that help
Yep.
this board and give you. And then in the meantime, you can read into a little bit more of that.
Kind of what I was getting at earlier. So thank you, Heather. You put it in better terms than I did.
Yes.
Thank you. I was a
So
little all over.
some basic drawings, just a basic footprint of the foundation in proximity to what rests there now and the lot lines, just as an exhibit or something that you could bring to the board.
All right.
And we could look at to see.
So based upon that discussion, I will entertain a motion to table this variance in both appeals.
I'll move to table variance appeal application 2023-124 and all corresponding subsections thereof pursuant to current parcel number 08A018A00040490.
Second?
Second?
All right, the issue is tabled.
What?
Yeah, or you want to take a vote? Or
I wasn't sure, sorry, yeah.
we could take a vote.
Just all in favor.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those in opposition? Okay. Issue will be tabled, and I trust there will be some additional information provided, and we can finally make a decision on this. Well, thank you for your patience.
While we're on the record, Taylor, Mr. Perry, if you would, please submit that pursuant to this board's request to the zoning inspector so we can further consider things.
Okay.
That would help out a lot.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
For the next meeting.
Yes.
Okay, no problem.
Excuse me. Thank you. Thank you for your patience. The next matter on the agenda is application 2023-128. Eric Neat, thank you, is requesting a variance from section 15.04B, table 15.04-1, to allow for the construction of a pavilion with a front building setback of 41 feet in lieu of the minimum 50 feet required for the property located at 12662 Girdle Road. Permanent parcel number 08A-08-B-00-001-0. You may approach. Good evening.
Eric Neat, I have been sworn in. I live at 12662 Girdle Road. And what I'd like to do is put up a pavilion about 20 by 20. And it'll be just 10 foot off of the barn that I built a couple years ago. That particular property, it's a great property, but it's a very long frontage. It goes all the way down the hill and then wraps across the creek to the other side. And then there's also riparian setbacks that come 75 foot off of Big Creek as well. So it leaves a kind of a small strip through there to build on. And then the other part of it is just aesthetically how it looks sitting next to the barn. By moving it a little bit closer to the road, it would just fit in better.
That is a nice property.
It is.
Okay, any other particulars you'd like to make us aware of?
No, I mean, basically it's for storing wood. I burn wood during the winter, and I have stacked it outside quite often, and it's just, I never realized before I moved there how damp it is down in the valleys. It's insanely wet, so keeping it completely out of the rain is much better. And also just if I do have overflow with my wagons and such to move the wood around, it'll allow me to park those.
Yeah, that's right at the bottom there.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it would be to the west of the, or southwest
It's really hard for me to tell.
of the barn, or
So north is on here somewhere, so that would be south. Yeah, a little bit southwest.
you know, like southwest of the barn?
Yeah.
And are you in the riparian setback? Is that the reason?
No, I'm actually, I think, still 5 or 6 foot off of the riparian.
Okay, so you're good there?
Yeah, but it'll just line up directly with the barn that's right there.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So the barn, and then there's actually a 6 foot overhang on the barn, but it'll just set right there.
And again,
And-
you're limited in what you can build and what you can do by virtue of the topography and the river and the creek bed.
Very limited. I mean, the other aspect of it is, could I put it out of everything right behind the existing? It's actually a double garage, but it's called a barn. We have very little yard space, and I kind of want to keep the yard space it is back there. It's something I don't use.
Got that great falls back there.
It is a great.
That's
falls.
wonderful.
It rushes every once in a while.
I'll bet it does. All right, anybody have any other questions? Ashley, questions? Davey?
Nope.
Brandon? Nope. All right,
Thank you.
thank you very much. there anyone here to speak? Did you know, were the neighbors notified?
Oh, yes, in all these cases, all of the adjoining
Yeah.
property owners and those across the street were notified.
All right, and you've spoken to your have you spoken to your neighbors about this?
Actually,
Okay, well, they received notice.
none of my neighbors are actually be able to see it because,
Yeah, it's pretty difficult.
yeah.
Yeah. All right, anyone speaking for or against? All right, if not, we'll close the public meeting. And I will entertain a motion to approve variance application 2023-128.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All right. Any discussion?
Yeah, I was gonna say, would it be, should we go through the Duncan factors on this? And I think it'd be pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I kind of went through them in my head already.
Well, I think,
Yeah.
but I think for the record, we could go through it.
Sure.
And I think that'll help with any further discussion that might be needed. So, will the property yield a reasonable return, or can there be a beneficial use of the property without the variance? And I think that's, yeah, there could be,
Yes.
but is the variance substantial? I don't think it's substantial. I think, I don't know if anybody else has
I don't think
any
it's
thoughts on that.
substantial.
Will the essential character of the neighborhood be substantially altered, or will adjoining property suffer a substantial detriment if the variance is granted? I do not think
I don't think that
so.
it will.
Will the variance adversely affect the delivery of governmental services? Again, no.
No.
Did the property owner purchase the property with knowledge of the zoning restrictions? I think it's a unique property. It's got some unique contours. It's got,
And
it's
restrictions.
correct. Can the problem be resolved by some manner other than granting the variance?
Possibly.
Possibly. Will the variance preserve the spirit and intent of the zoning resolution, and will substantial justice be done by granting the variance? I think the spirit and intent of the zoning will be preserved, and I do think, let's see, will substantial justice be done? But I think if justice will be done, because we're helping a homeowner keep their wood dry. I think this is, from the plans, it seems very basic. It's right in line with the existing structure. I think that's...
Yeah, I think the fact that he wants to like architecturally incorporate the structure to mesh with the barn, I think that says a lot. It'll just look better,
Yeah.
according to you, which I'll take your word for. So, yeah.
Yeah, any other... That's kind of my thoughts. We'll go through this and
Yeah.
see if that spurs any other discussion. But I think it's a nice design. I think talking about 9 feet, we've done 10-foot variances in the past. Again, I think that's up to us to decide when to grant these. And I think this is one that I'm willing to grant.
Okay. Anybody else?
I agree with everything Mr. Rowan said. It's a
So
unique
do I.
parcel. It's a unique situation.
Yep. All right, so Ashley? Good? Okay, all right, so the question on approval, the question is on the approval of variance 2023-128. A yes vote is for the approval of the variance, and a no vote denies the variance. Heather, can you please call for a vote?
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes?
Mr. Dines?
Yes.
Mr. Rowan?
Yes.
Ms. Farquhar?
Yes.
All right, congratulations, your variance has been approved. Good luck with that. All right. And I believe our final variance for this evening next is variance number 2023-129. This is Mr. Steve Cook? Yes, sir. All right. Good evening. You're requesting a variance from section 1503A6 and table 15.03-1 to allow 2 accessory buildings on the property in lieu of the maximum 1 permitted for the property located at 6519 Coleridge Road, permanent parcel number 08A-32-D-00-037-0.
Yes.
Okay, may approach.
Steve Cook, I've been sworn in.
All right, so good evening.
Hi.
All right, so we've got your application here.
I
And,
didn't hear him. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, you said your name, you
Steve
state your
Cook.
address and you're sworn in?
6519, I've been sworn in.
Okay, thanks, I didn't hear you.
Coleridge.
Yes, Coleridge.
All right, so this seems to be pretty straightforward. Sir, were you aware that the zoning ordinance is restricted?
Was not.
Okay.
I moved here from Colorado.
You did?
Yeah,
Okay, when did you move?
2017.
Okay, congratulations. Okay, so,
I purchased the house with the shed on the property
okay,
prior to building a new garage.
okay. So, is the garage detached?
No,
So I'm confused. So how many? You're proposing another shed?
no.
All right, so what's the violation?
I think it is detached. What this is showing. It's the garage is separate from the house,
The
right?
garage is a
So,
detached garage.
so it's detached?
Yes,
Okay.
that I just built.
So you're asking to keep it. You built
I'm
it
Right.
asking,
without
I'm
a
asking
permit,
to
now
keep
it has to
the old shed that was there when I purchased the house.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. I'm all up to speed now.
Okay,
I have no other questions.
You bought the house, there was a shed,
yes,
you then constructed another structure,
yes.
and you did that without a zoning permit,
No, I
correct?
did,
Oh, you did?
yes.
Okay.
And building permits for the
And building
garage.
permits, okay,
Yes,
all right.
I've been a contractor for 19 years.
Well, I
In
wasn't
Colorado, so-
questioning your ability, I was just making sure that I'm on the
Yeah.
same page here. Okay.
So if you
Mr. Chairman, I
guys-
don't know if it's appropriate for me to say
Please.
anything at this point. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
So he did come in and receive a zoning permit for the detached garage. One of the former assistant zoning inspectors approved that zoning permit. It's assistant zoning inspector no longer is employed with Concord Township. I personally went over to the property to inspect the new garage that he built per the approved permit, and there were 2 other sheds in the backyard that were on the property. After some conversations with Mr. Cook, he removed one of the 2 sheds that were back there and decided to come and ask for your permission to keep the other small one that still remains in the back.
Okay.
That is how that kind of played out. Just
I've
Got
complied with everything Heather has asked.
And I think
Yep.
that's where the confusion was.
Right,
You
okay.
applied- The
Now
permits
I'm
were applied for.
completely
How did we
cleared up.
miss? Okay, makes sense. Okay,
thank you.
thank you
All
for
right.
the clarification.
Sure.
All right.
Is there clarification of how we missed prior to you inspecting the approval of the permits when there was already 2 structures on there?
I'm sorry.
Approval of a 3rd structure?
I did not get approval for zoning for the second shed. It was my neighbor's shed and he pushed it over to my yard and said, here, use this. Okay, so, and then that's gone. But the original shed
So-
with the property, with the house, I'd like to keep.
So he went through the proper channels.
With the garage, but why was
No,
it?
but so he went through the proper channels. A previous assistant zoning inspector approved it without checking the property or without checking, something happened with the previous assistant. So when it was approved, we weren't aware, or somehow it was lost in there that there was another
Right.
building on the property.
Right.
That's partially correct. He just admitted that he got the other shed from the neighbor, and there was no permit for that other shed
Right.
either.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's gone, so
And
that's
it-
not
That's
the
gone.
question.
It's gone.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was just I was more asking of how
Yeah.
a new garage was approved when there was
Right.
previous structures.
Well, it should not have been.
Okay.
I would not have approved that had I reviewed that permit. That
it
was,
just so happened,
for whatever reason, the assistant issued that permit without acknowledging the fact that those
Okay.
2 other structures were there.
And the existing remaining shed is 10 by 14. That's the old one that was there when you bought the house.
Yep.
I have no other questions.
I have no questions.
I don't have any questions.
Anything further? Ashley? All right, thank you, sir. Is there anyone here speaking for or against? I don't believe there is. So go ahead and close the public hearing on that, and I will entertain a motion to approve variance number 2023-129.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right. So moved. So carried. All right, any additional discussion?
Well, I mean, this is very remarkable and unique all at the same time. It's, I mean, the Duncan factors, we could certainly go through those, but I guess in part, through no fault of our zoning inspector or the township, but perhaps by error of the former employee, we're left with a situation here where it seems to be a little bit against what we want to do to make this gentleman tear down his new building that he constructed when he did so with the proper channels. He's gotten rid of the other potentially third accessory, which his neighbor pushed over. He's indicated to us, and I think Heather's confirmed that's no longer present. So in applying the Duncan factors, and I won't go through each one of them, I think under these circumstances, we can, at least I can certainly say that those factors are met such that I would be in favor of granting the variance.
I second.
All right, anything further? All right, then the question is on the approval of variance 2023-129. A yes vote is for the approval of variance, a no vote denies the variance. Heather, can you please call for the vote?
Mr. Rowan?
Yes.
Mr. Dines?
Yes.
Ms. Garkar?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes. Congratulations.
Thanks,
Thanks for coming in.
appreciate it.
All right, that's all we have in terms of the agenda items. And if I could, call for a motion to approve the minutes of the April 12th, 2023 meeting.
So moved.
You here?
I was, yes,
Okay.
I was going to make that motion. I'll second.
Second? All right.
Sorry.
Any comments or discussion regarding this?
Well, thank you for asking. I would like to comment. I would say that once again, Ms. Melton has outdone herself. Continues to do a wonderful job, as she's always done for the Concord Township. It's my understanding that perhaps, is it okay to speak? That perhaps Ms. Melton may be retiring, which is bittersweet, and in part for me because she's been a longtime friend and coworker. I think that we all owe her a debt of gratitude, and I don't know to what extent the township will be acknowledging and recognizing her, but I would like to do so and say that she's been fantastic over these years. He's sorely missed.
Thank you. Thank you, Mindy, for your service. So noted. I second that.
I'll third it.
I think we have to affirm the minutes still.
And I believe the question is on approval for the minutes. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Any abstaining? Ashley?
I was not
Okay.
here.
All right, that carries that. All right, the meeting for May 10th is now concluded. Next meeting is June 14th, 2023. Thank you very much.